Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for September 9th, 2020. I have here with me Arthur Doyle, Michael Zulis, Katie Conlon, Mike Dennehy, our Town Administrator, Richard Wells, Kevin Freitag, our Town Council, and Hillary Waite, our Executive Administrative Assistant. And we'll be having some other guests as well who we'll announce at the time. So we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And if people could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like to move up an agenda item before we get to public comment. Under topics the chair did not reasonably anticipate would be discussed. And we have a momentous occasion that occurred on August 29th, 2020. Ms. Conlon noticed an article in the Patriot Ledger on a couple, May and George Ryan, longtime Milton residents, and they were celebrating their 75th wedding anniversary. And the board very much would like to celebrate with them and invite the town to celebrate with them. And so Ms. Conlon very kindly drafted a beautiful proclamation and a cover letter. And I will read the proclamation now, unless I hear any objections. No, excellent, thank you. Whereas Mary, May, Roper, and George Ryan grew up in Dorchester, Massachusetts, met at Hutchinson Field in Milton on June 25th, 1939, and after George completed his service to the United States Army during World War II, were married on August 29th, 1945, at St. Gregory Church in Dorchester. And whereas May and George Ryan moved to Milton in 1960 and raised their family at 12 Kenilworth Road, where they have resided for the past 60 years. And whereas May and George Ryan are the proud parents of 4 children, G. Thomas Ryan, Kathleen Ryan Lavery, Mary Louise Ryan, and Edward Ryan, grandparents to 3 cherished grandchildren, and great-grandparents to 3 beloved great-grandchildren. And whereas over the past 6 decades, as they raised their family and pursued career interests, May and George Ryan took the time to give back to the Milton community. And whereas George Ryan served on several town committees, including the Warrant Committee, which he chaired for 2 years, and whereas May Ryan is a longtime volunteer at St. Agatha Parish in Milton. And whereas May and George Ryan celebrated 75 years of marriage on August 29th, 2020. Now, therefore, we, the Milton Select Board, congratulate May and George Ryan on their 75th wedding anniversary and urge all residents of the town of Milton to join us in wishing them well on this special occasion, dated September 9th, 2020. All the best, and thank you for allowing us to celebrate with you.
Beautiful photo that Kathleen Ryan Lavery submitted.
Yes.
To the screen. So, Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve and sign the proclamation and deliver it as soon as we can to the Ryans.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells? see. Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
And Mr. Wells, could you unmute yourself, please? Let me see if I can reach him. Hillary, are you able to unmute Richard?
I am not, and I'm hearing from him that *6 isn't responding.
Oh.
So he may need to exit and return to Zoom.
Okay. I wonder if we might be able to have his vote in another form.
Yeah, I'm sure Richard would want to sign on to this. So
yes,
if we're able to get him in a little while, we can, at the end of the meeting, revote it if necessary. But I'm sure he'd be happy to issue the proclamation and to congratulate the Ryans on their 75th anniversary. Quite a rare event. So worth noting. All the best to the Ryan family.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to say something?
Well, congratulations and best wishes, and it's an astounding event. It's difficult to comprehend that level of commitment and love. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and we will check in at the end with Richard, if not before. Let's see. So now we move on to item number 3, public comment. So the way this works, I see that there are some people who've called in by phone, but if you don't wish to speak, that's fine. Anyone who wishes to speak, if you could raise your hand, and then I will make a list and of both names and phone numbers. So if you are on the phone, because I do believe we have a couple of people on the phone, if you could, oh, where's the slide? If you could press *6 to unmute, *9 to raise your hand. If you can't read the screen, you press *9 to raise your hand. Okay, I see number 323. If you wouldn't mind giving us your name and your address, and then we'd be happy to hear you speak. So that's *6 to unmute.
Hi, this is Cindy Christensen. I must be 323. I wanted to, well, let me say Cindy Christensen, 59 Collmore Street. I wanted to let you know I tried to use Zoom, like the web link on your agenda, and it said that the host has declined your webinar registration. So I don't know if other people are having that problem, but that's the problem I had, so why I called in.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
If someone were other people having the same problem, if you could just raise your hand so we know if this is a larger problem, we'd appreciate it. Okay. All right. Well, I do apologize for that.
That's okay.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead with my what I wanted to say. One of your agenda items tonight is the discussion of the records request officer. I don't know why you're discussing this, but the fact that you are and that I don't know is a really good example of why I'm speaking now and what I'm going to suggest. Through my regional and national work on the aviation problems created by FAA's NextGen program, I've been able to watch and sometimes contribute material for town and city government meetings across the country. One difference between these municipalities and Milton stands out. Each of these municipal government posts, along with their agenda, all of the meeting material for the meeting. Most of the pre-meeting material is in draft form, much like a packet of material that I think you, as select board members, receive prior to your meeting. You might even share this with the press, I don't know, but you do not share it with the public. I wonder why. Instead of having easy access to these public documents, even those in draft form. We only get to hear your deliberations on material we have not seen. We come to public comment like I'm doing now, not knowing the purpose or focus of your agenda items, or not having time to review a technical presentation like your MCAC reps. A transparent town government should share the material you receive prior to the meeting on the town's public website when you post the agenda, even though Mass General Law doesn't require you to do this. Why? To be transparent and to facilitate public discussion and knowledge. Please consider doing this. But here's what I wanted to say before I knew that you were discussing Milton's records request officer tonight. I've made many public records requests and have found our town clerk's office to be helpful and responsive. However, they cannot control how you, as select board members and town administration, respond to my requests. I've had responses from you that are incomplete, excessively costly, and even more recently where the record seems to have been lopped off of one of the final important paragraphs. And now you seem to be using town council to fulfill my request, even for something as simple as unposted meeting minutes. Isn't that kind of expensive, and aren't we on a tight budget here in town? When these problems and inconsistencies in your records responses happen, I'm forced to spend my time to appeal or inform the records officer who then has to get back to you. Wouldn't it be easier and more efficient to just try to do it right the first time, to be a transparent town government, one that understands and acts as if the records are public, which they are. They belong to the residents of Milton. And because these things continue to happen to me, it builds mistrust, it builds a culture of silencing, untruthfulness, an environment that practices exclusionary tactics, fear, passive aggressiveness, and could even put Milton in the race for another muzzle award. So whatever you are discussing tonight about the records officer, please examine your role in why things aren't going so well with my own personal records request. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we will move on. Number 4 is a COVID-19 update, and actually we'll be having the local emergency preparedness committee come hopefully to our next meeting with an updated report that will tell us how we've been doing since June. And Lieutenant Caputo and Caroline Kinsella, our health director, should also be coming. Are there any other updates that people have regarding COVID-19 or concerns that we'd like to look at, Mr. Zulus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this may be properly a future agenda item. I'm not really sure, but the board can decide. On August 12th, this board voted to recommend a mandatory mask zone order for our commercial areas to the Board of Health because it is the Board of Health that has the authority. And so we reviewed and voted on an order urging the use of masks by everyone in those zones. And on August 31st, my understanding is that the Board of Health did not agree and did not accept that recommendation. So perhaps it makes sense for this board to meet with the Board of Health to see if we can discuss any issues and maybe come to some kind of consensus on this, because it means that this board thought it was a good idea, and apparently the Board of Health didn't think it was a good idea. So perhaps we can have a joint meeting and discuss that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Oh, good. Richard is back with us. Richard, could we just test your audio for a minute? I just want to make sure that we can that we've got?
Yes, and I was a yes vote on that, Madam Chair. I actually was
Okay.
texting it to Hillary because I couldn't speak.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And now we're very fortunate to have our library director, Will Adamczyk, with us, and he has a presentation. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me tonight. It's my pleasure to come before the Select Board. Thank you for the invitation. I'll take up just a little bit of your time to talk about what the library has been doing over the past several months, and look ahead just a little bit. And if you'll just afford me just a minute to say some thank yous before I get started. We wouldn't be where we are today as the library if it wasn't for the excellent library staff who have been key players throughout this entire pandemic response. And I'd like to thank our trustees, our friends, and our foundation organizations and individual members. I also have a big thank you to Bill Ritchie, Bob Mayhew, and the entire Consolidated Facilities Department, who spent long hours in the library getting us ready to reopen and to respond to the needs of our residents. I'd like to thank Amy Dexter and the accounting office for helping us with the reimbursement process for COVID expenses that I'll talk about a little bit later. And thank you to the town administrator, Dennehy, and Caroline Kinsella, and the members of the emergency response team in the town for their guidance throughout this. And thank you to you, the Select Board, for your leadership during COVID-19 pandemic and everything we've been facing. So my first slide is going to be a slide that talks a little bit about the timeline of what's happened at the library since March. Beginning in early March, on the 13th, we thought we saw the future, and we suspended all programming. We suspended all in-person meetings. And that was quickly followed by closing the library to the public on March 15th. We had the best of intentions, and on that Monday, the 16th, we began a curbside program where people were able to pick up their books on hold at the curb of the library. We began online programming at that time as well. That wasn't to last very long before March 20th, when the COVID-19 pandemic just started to build, that curbside services ceased, and we began to just have essential staff reporting. The rest of the staff was involved in online book collection, development, online programming, which we picked up really quickly, led by our children's department. And we started to have an online help desk and tech support program. During this time, we created a 6-step reopening plan. Right about now, we're on step 4.5, I'd like to say. And that was just to be prepared for what was to come. What was to come was a long waiting period. And during that waiting period, the Assistant Director, Sarah Trogue, and our administrative assistant, Jan Parr, and myself were in the library Monday through Friday on a rotating basis, making sure that the daily functions were continuing. Staff returned in May on the 21st. They returned to the building on a rotating schedule. We continued our online programming and tech support at that point. But we ramped up to reintroduce curbside services on May 26th. This also included book returns, which was something that people couldn't wait for, getting those books that they felt guilty having for all those months. Not too long after that, we began to prepare to open to the public. And this is where the help of many town departments and many hands came in. We also collaborated with other libraries in the Old Colony Library Network and in the area around Milton. We opened the building to the public on a limited basis on July 6th, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. And then the next step is going to be this Saturday. We're going to be resuming our Saturday hours. The next thing we're looking at is possibly returning to Sunday hours in October after the Indigenous Persons holiday in the middle of the month. We have been weighing evenings versus weekend hours. And our statistics over the last several years show that we are more heavily used on a weekend than we are on an evening. And if we are not able to offer programming or meetings on an evening, there's even less of a draw as far as a return on investment for that. A couple of other things that happened over this time period were that we began working with the Council on Aging. We provided the curbside. They provided the driver who would then deliver the books to their constituents. We also had a couple of smaller programs going on with the schools at that time. Part of that was putting books with some of the school lunch pickups over the summer. The next slide just highlights one of the kind of non-library things that we did over the past several months, and that was our Let's Stay Connected newsletter. Sally Lawler has been running this for us, and she started it right away, and it continues today. We started asking our neighbors to send in pictures about what they were doing to try to stay normal during the lockdown and our quarantining. We were looking to discontinue it when we kind of opened up a little bit, but people are still sending in images, and this is something that people have really grabbed onto. About 10,000 residents are receiving it on a weekly basis, with about 4,000 people opening it on a regular basis. I don't know how big your screens are now, and I don't know if this was the same story at Town Hall, but in the middle of the screen, you'll see a little raccoon peering in the window at the library. We noticed come April that without the regular traffic, I was seeing foxes, turkeys, and raccoons in the parking lot. This raccoon stared at me through the front door and wouldn't let me out for quite some time. So I got some good comp time that day. Now, and then moving on to the next slide, just a little bit about where we were pre-COVID as a library compared to where we are today. And these are some of the numbers. We averaged about 17,000 people through the door any month prior to COVID. And of course, that went down to 0, but we're back up to, as of August, over 2,800 people were back coming into the library. Yesterday, it was the day after a holiday, but it was our busiest day yet since reopening. We had over 280 people visit the library yesterday. Pre-COVID, we checked out over 20,000 books a month, physical books. That, of course, went down to 0, but I'm happy to report over the last 3 months, since curbside resumed, we went from 4,000 to 14 and then up to 18,000 in August. So before COVID, 72% of our circulation was physical books people came in, took out. That's down to 34% on average right now. Programming is something I'm especially proud of. We were offering 54 programs a month. There was a little delay in March, but by the end of the spring, we were up to 50 programs a month between children's programming, a robust teen programming, and our adult programming as well. The attendees, we didn't have the same numbers as the 1,500 pre-COVID, but we were getting 600 or more people a month attending our programming. Some of those were really big. We had a couple of programs that reached 120 to 150 people that were related to our Milton Reads program. Next, I'm just going to talk on the next slide about some of the digital aspects. And this is what we spend a lot of our time on, and we continue to now. We had just less than 9,000 digital uses a month coming into this. We're over 12,000 a month right now, and that's ebooks, streaming video, audio, language learning, all kinds of different things. We were at 2,300 ebooks a month. We're at 4,200 right now. We checked out over 8,600 ebooks over the summer in July and August. That's a 67% increase compared to 2019. Audiobooks has been busy as well. Over the summer, there were 3,800 used. That's a 30% increase over last year. Streaming video went from 500 uses a month to 900. That's over 100% increase. And going along with the physical slide, 28% of our use used to be digital, and now it's close to a third of our usage. I'll just talk briefly about how we prepared to reopen. And I mentioned, again, Bill Ritchie and his team were integral in this. and Amy Dexter with supplying some of the funding for this through either the CARES Act or the COVID funding. We were able to install plastic screens and barriers at all service desks, increase or create social distancing signage, both on the floor and at iSite. We changed our furniture layout and removed a lot of our furniture, so there would be limited seating. We worked with Town Administrator Dennehy on this midday cleaning at the library and other town buildings. Multiple hand sanitizer stations have been installed, masks, gloves, and cleaning supplies. And one of the major changes is we now have a tent out front, small tent, which is a greeter station. And this is where we take care of the protocols, which is assuring that people are wearing masks before entering and that they wear them at all times, that we have 20 visitors at a time, that their visit is no more than 30 minutes. And then people, when they return the books, we've been quarantining them for 48 hours before any staff touch them. And that's based on CDC recommendations to the American Library Association. Now, we were able to get funding to help pay for storage bins for these books that are being quarantined. It takes up a lot of space and bin space we didn't have. We were able to purchase and install self-check stations in the library, hands-free scanners at the desk. Earlier on, some Zoom accounts, signage, PPEs, and additional ebook materials. So now on the next slide, now that the library is reopened, these are some of the things that you can do. You can see a friendly face. You can see some of your neighbors for the first time. You're able to browse our stacks, pick up holds. We'll print out documents and scan them for you if you need be. You check out your books, your museum passes, and you can even use the restroom. What you still can't do is use a public computer, make photocopies, or use any of the technology. These were hands off, anything that could be repetitively used. And we still have limitations on public meetings or attending programs. We have all of our programming through the winter booked online with no intention of having in-person programming. Some of the new things since we've reopened, we've introduced a library of things where people can check out all kinds of different things from cookie cutters to digital, DVD to digital converters and other devices like that. We also had all of our Wi-Fi hotspots that we checked out the entire time. We purchased more. Those have all been checked out the entire time. What's next is that we are purchasing 10 Chromebooks and 10 hotspots to go with them to try to replace the public computing that we cannot offer right now. That's something we're working on so that people can use some of the seating located outside the building if they want to have longer stays out in the open air. The next slide just shows some of our early visitors. The kids came back, a lot of families coming into the library, and there's Sarah Trogue out front at our greeter station where she's checking people in on a nice sunny day. The next slide just talks a little bit about what you can still do online. You can attend all our programs, browse our catalog. We set up some LibGuides, and what these are is they're visual lists that we have on our website. We use them for our art gallery space. Since there was no physical art gallery, we featured local artists that way. We also created a social justice display. We created a Pride Month display. And we've done a number of other ones for job searching and other topics of interest. You can still read books, stream music, learn languages, and ask for help from a librarian. The new thing that we are just offering online is called Book Match. And this is a service where you can fill out a short form if you're looking for something good to read, and one of the librarians on staff will give you some choices, especially if there's limited choice of what might be checked in at any given time. We'll be able to give you something that's actually in and on the shelf. I'll just try to wrap up with a couple of numbers. Since March, we've had 10,000, like I said, people receiving our Let's Stay Connected newsletter. over 72,000 digital uses, 25,000 ebooks used. We offered over 280 programs. And then just counting since we resumed curbside in May and opened our doors in July, we've had over 5,300 people through the door. We've had over 2,800 curbside deliveries, and we've checked out 27,000 items. And a look at the post-COVID library on the next slide, there are going to be some needs and some projects going on at the library. It's still in a wait and see, but we're trying to respond to offering improved, safe public computing services, whether that'll be the installation of a wireless printing solution and a laptop solution. We're looking at bolstering our Zoom capabilities with some sort of a hybrid studio / meeting room space so that as our children's librarians and other staff are offering programs, we have more professional sound equipment and video equipment and the capability of offering a hybrid so that some people eventually can attend in person and also see the same experience online. We're also looking at furniture solutions, less furniture, different kinds of furniture as the new normal comes about. A couple of challenges are listed on our next slide. One of the challenges is that a substantial part of our books and material budget is fine money related. Well, we haven't collected fines since March, so that is a potential loss in revenue. Another challenge, this is where success has been, creates some challenges. People are using our ebooks. Ebooks cost more than hardcover books, so that's an increased cost for our materials. In our pay-per-use services, such as Hoopla, which averages about $1.70 per use. Canopy, our streaming videos, about 90 cents a use, but they're being used more than they ever were. We also have additional COVID-related costs, of course, with cleaning supplies, cleaning services, anticipated, possible reductions to a mid-year budget. We'll see where that goes. But those are some of the challenges that we're facing. In conclusion, I think that we've done a pretty good job of trying to keep our residents and our neighbors with resources and options while they were quarantined and continuing now into the fall. It's not the library it used to be, but we have the same people there, the same friendly faces. People are coming back. They're very happy to be inside. There's been no safety concerns from the staff or from the people and the residents coming in to use us. They're very happy to have access again, and they're very happy to see each other through their Let's Stay Connected posts and online at the. We would start a lot of our Zooms early and let them run a little late because inevitably somebody would be like, oh, yeah, I haven't seen you in a while, and they were kind of chatting on the side a little bit. So that's what I have for you, and I thank you for your time. I know I took up quite a bit of it, but this is what we've been doing, and this is where we're going, and very happy to report this out to you.
Well, thank you very much, Director Adamczyk. I think we've all been extremely impressed and so grateful to you and your staff and all the other people who've made the library part of our lives during COVID possible.
Thank you.
Would any of the members like to ask a question or make a comment, Mr. Doyle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to add my compliments on a remarkable accomplishment, and thank you for a very well-ordered presentation. It was very informative.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle.
The one thing that came to mind is, Madam Chair, maybe the possibility of an update after we are into the fall season. That transition period between now and what we hope will be a post-COVID-19 era again in our country. So I'd just ask if it's appropriate for that to be consideration for the future. Weather's going to change, habits are going to change. You're probably working with your colleagues at other libraries and in your professional associations in preparing for this, and maybe a bit of an update on that would be helpful to everybody.
Absolutely.
Any other members have questions or comments? No? Okay.
No questions, just I'll just second or third the kudos and the thanks on a job well done to the library staff. Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Thank you. They were all very excited to get back to work and open the doors again. So.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
And thanks to your staff.
Thank you very much.
Next up on our agenda, we had the pleasure of reappointing our representative to the Norfolk County Advisory Board. And Mr. Joe Reardon is with us this evening to also give us an update. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chair Collins, and through you to the members. To the chair and to the staff, would there be an opportunity to recognize and ask to serve on the panel? County Director Michael Mullen, I believe, is on the line. And I also believe that County Commissioner Peter Collins should be. If he's not, he's on his way. He had a agricultural high school board meeting tonight. Oh, I think
See Mr. Mullen. Okay, there he's now joining. And there's Mr. Collins. Excellent. Thank you both for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
To the chair and to the members, I appreciate the opportunity to serve the town in the capacity as the representative to the Norfolk County Advisory Board. All of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the fiduciary responsibility of the advisory board. And since my first appointment a number of years ago, I've had the opportunity to work with some great people on county government. And I believe that county government provides lots of regional solutions that help all the communities in the county. And in a few moments, I'd like to walk through some of the things we've been doing on the county level and share with you where we are. But first, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Collins. We are fortunate to have a commissioner from Milton. We've had a commissioner from Milton for many, many years. And I'd like to recognize Commissioner Collins for some remarks, as well as I'd like to congratulate him for all the help that he's provided the town of Milton in his service as commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Collins? Since the slides are up, I cannot see if...
Hey, how about now? Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are now.
Terrific. Can you see my picture? I can't see a picture there.
No, I don't see it. Hillary, if you wouldn't mind taking the slides down just for a moment. Okay. And
I also sent you a prompt, Mr. Collins.
Oh.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. That was my wife running away. She was the master of ceremonies here. Thank you, and I want to thank Joe Reardon for doing a terrific job as your advisory board representative. I'll give you a really fast, you just had a really long presentation from the library, which I love. I use the library all the time, but I'm going to be as quick as I can. So a lot of people don't know much about the county, but Norfolk County is made up of 28 cities and towns. It runs from Brookline to Cohasset all the way to Bellingham. And just like the town provides services to the town, we provide regional services to all the cities and towns within Norfolk County. The courthouses, the golf course, the President's Golf Course, things like that. And it's a terrific job. I've been doing it for 26 years. My dad had done it for 28 years. And that's why I knew more about it than most people. But I followed in his footsteps, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to represent Milton and to do a nice job for the county and all the cities and towns in Norfolk County. Really quickly, too, I know Joe's going to talk about this, but one of the things that had come up in the county was, and I know you'll find this in town government, too, funding mechanisms over time, the time reveals that the funding mechanism isn't spot on. And so we've been dealing with some funding issues. We've been trying to get some money from the state for some years. We're working on that still. But one of the things that we did was we reapportioned how some of the money was used within the county. several years ago, and then we realized that wasn't quite right. The money wasn't wasted, it wasn't spent, but it wasn't accessible by us as the county commissioners to really fund county government as it should be done. We presented this to the Finance Committee for the past few years. We've had some small successes, but this past year when Joe Reardon became the chair of the Finance Committee, we explained what was going on to him, and he ran with it. And he's been the best advocate I've ever seen in 26 years for county government. So I really want to thank Joe. If you haven't caught him in one of his speeches, just when he starts, just kick back, because it's a thing of beauty. Not too many people can speak quite like Joe. And I've been saying that for some time, and I think I embarrass him just a little bit when I say it, but he's an exceptional orator. So that being said, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chairman, and to Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. Mr. Reardon, I believe I see there next to you Commissioner Mullen. Commissioner Mullen, would you like to address the board as well?
If it's with the pleasure of the chair, if we could proceed to the slides. The way that we've set up the presentation is that, to Commissioner Collins's point, I will speak toward the financial side and the fiduciary side as your appointee, and Director Mullen will speak to the operational side and the changes going on there, the positive changes that have gone there, particularly as it affects Milton, if that would be okay with the chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Great,
Please
thank
proceed.
you. So first and foremost, I want to thank the Select Board for reappointing me to the Norfolk County Advisory Board. Last year, as Commissioner Collins mentioned, I was elected Vice Chair of the Advisory Board, serving with a great team with Paul Connors, who was the former town administrator in Randolph, and Dr. Elizabeth Childs, who actually was a state commissioner appointee in the Department of Mental Health. So it brings a lot of experience to the table. And with their help, I've had the opportunity to chair the Finance Committee. And this year in particular, we face some challenges. And if Hillary could go to the next slide, I'd just like to share not only the challenges, but kind of some background. So the town of Milton, obviously, has had a long relationship to Norfolk County. Norfolk County is one of the few counties that still operates independently of the state. Many other counties are now just geographical areas, but Norfolk County continues to operate and provide services to all of the municipalities in the county. The town of Milton is assessed $262,824.80 raised from the tax levy to contribute to Norfolk County government. In return, the county offers many different services. For us living in Milton, one of the most prominent is, of course, the Wollaston Recreational Facility. Many people refer to it as President's Golf Course, but there are other opportunities there, including some brand new tennis courts that have been refurbished right on the property. There's a restaurant there. There's a lot of great opportunities there. And what a lot of people don't know is that the majority of land on that site is in Milton. Now, the liquor license for the restaurant is in Quincy, but the majority of the land is in Milton. Of course, Quincy District Court provides local access to the trial court. So people who need access to the trial court don't have to traverse the county to get there. The engineering department has assisted the town of Milton over the years, including most recently with a tremendous service to the town in doing some traffic studies for the East Milton Square project that we're seeing right now. The Norfolk County Agricultural High School is a gem. Now, what's disappointing, and I'm being frank in this, is that only 3 Milton students currently attend the Aggie. The Aggie is an amazing, amazing school. I have known students to go through there that have had an opportunity to work in animal science, to take on careers in landscape design, all sorts of things that a school like Milton High School, which is an excellent school, can't provide. And although it's for another time, I'd like to see some sort of way to reach out to the community to let people know that the Aggie is there. It is a tremendous program. It provides all sorts of different educational opportunities for kids in the county. And I hope that Milton will take a look at it a little differently in the future. In addition, we have the RSVP program. The RSVP program is the local affiliate of the Service Corps, the National Service Corps, that is administered by Norfolk County. And what the RSVP program does is matches seniors and retirees to work helping veterans. They have a veterans ride program, helping children in the schools, and also helping those in need. It's a tremendous program that helps a lot of people. Normally in August, they'd have a big lunch at Lantana or Lombardo's, I forget which. Obviously this year we couldn't have it, and I hope that in the future the members of the select board could attend that to learn more about it. One of the other great opportunities the county provides is group purchasing. Over the years, many of the municipalities have had the opportunity to join on Norfolk County bids and take the savings from that. So as we move forward, regional government has that opportunity. I'd encourage the select board and town administrator to work with the warrant committee perhaps to entertain ways perhaps to look at using this county opportunity to help yield some savings in the group purchasing. And lastly, there is, although the town of Milton will have a ballot question in November with regard to the Community Preservation Act, what a lot of people are unaware of is that the Registry of Deeds, which is a county operation, a county department, has a great deal of play in that because the fees raised, or a portion of the fees raised through the Register of Deeds fees, is going towards the trust fund for the CPA. This year, due to the low interest rates, there has been a tremendous increase in the number of people refinancing, buying homes and the like. So from the beginning of the year, when it was estimated, I think back in March, at about an 11% match from the state through the CPA trust fund, it's now at 17.7%. And the county revenue through the deeds is able to contribute to that. And many of the communities in Norfolk County have participated in the CPA and seen great benefit from it, partially through the funds raised through the Registry of Deeds. The next slide, please, Hillary. As Peter mentioned, the 2021 budget was one that we really had to roll up our sleeves in order to tackle. There were many issues involved. First and foremost was a decrease in revenue projections by $121,000, where costs on the other end went up $730,000. In addition, in order to work on that, there was a $500,000 draw on the stabilization fund. That meant that we would have to go into our savings deeply in order to continue to fund operations. Fortunately, through the management of the commissioners, the county director and his team, they are looking that the fund will be able to be repaid through an offset and unexpended FY20 funds. And we'll share in a moment how we approach that. Unfortunately, that also meant that looking forward, there still will be a $500,000 structural deficit in play. Now, we are addressing that, have addressed that, and we'll share how we went about that. In addition, as with the town of Milton, we're facing cost increases on health insurance, retirement, cost of living increases, and those increases far outpace the revenues. And lastly, as we heard in the COVID update, there is a real threat of a cyclical deficit due to COVID-19. And for the foreseeable future, it's not going away and remains a concern for us on the county level. Next slide, please. With all of these issues, as a team, the finance committee and the commissioners and the county director worked to create 3 budget solutions that we thought would help the county move forward in a financially sound way. The first was a hiring freeze, which was established earlier this year, followed by a complete spending freeze. Obviously, there were emergency situations, but by and large, the spending freeze was in place in order to recoup some of the funds. In the end, after going through the budget process, the Finance Committee recommended $851,000 in budget cuts across all the departments in the county. The great thing about that, though, was that there were no layoffs. Everybody kept their jobs, and we truly appreciate the work of the county team. All of the employees are dedicated to their jobs, and we were very fortunate to be able to make these cuts without any layoffs. The second budget solution was something that Commissioner Collins spoke to a few moments ago. The funding of the Registry of Deeds was something that needed to be looked at differently, because the historical numbers realized only 75% of the actual registry budget was expended. That left money going into a fund that the county commissioners did not have access to use for other operations. So the first piece was to right-size the registry budget, which we worked with Registrar O'Donnell, we worked with the commissioners, with the Finance Committee, and ultimately the entire Norfolk County Advisory Board to do. And part of that was involved with the calculation of what's known as the county mandate. The county mandate, without getting into deep with it, would recognize that certain funds that are accrued by the Registry of Deeds would be included in funds that they could use for the betterment of the operations at the registry. That is tied into increases year over year through the budget process. However, the year over year increases at 2.5%, with which we're all familiar, were for some reason funded based on an appropriation rather than on what was expended, and it should be what's expended. So we corrected that and were able to adjust that so that there'd be more funds appropriately coming back to the county for use in operations. And the third budget solution on the next slide. This is something that we're very proud of because, as Commissioner Collins said, sometimes as things move on, we can get stuck in practices that perhaps aren't the best. So what the Finance Committee did, and ultimately the Norfolk County Advisory Board did, is recommend that there be a comprehensive audit, operational analysis, and strategic plan for the county. And this would look at many different aspects of county government, certainly the county's financial standing, but also a structural analysis, operational analysis. It would invite stakeholders, including the Finance Committee, which up until last year met probably about 3 or 4 times a year. We've been meeting monthly in order to make sure that we can keep moving this forward and have a county government that is not just stable, but is growing and able to meet the needs of the communities we represent. Identify the best practices. I think we all have a tendency to rely on what we know, but sometimes what we don't know and learn can be better for us all. And lastly, to develop a strategic plan for county government moving forward so that we can continue to serve the residents of the county the way we should. And the next slide would be with regard to operations. So certainly as Vice Chair of the Advisory Board and Chair of the Finance Committee, I can speak to the financial status of the county and the outlook for our budget process in the year to come. But our director, Michael Mullen, does an unbelievable job of making sure that the operations of the county stay in mission and keeping the county focused on the needs of the residents and ensuring that all of the programs that are offered are going to be improved upon year after year after year. So I would like to recognize Director Mullen to share some of the operational updates that have been going on for the past few months.
I can thank you, Madam Chair, and Chair Reed, and also, and to the members of the board and to Madam Chair, I have to really begin by reiterating, what Commissioner Collins had mentioned about how much of a pleasure it is, to work with Joe Reardon as your advisory board member. He's a class act and just a real pleasure to work with. But as both Peter and Joe had mentioned, we as a county have really been working, not only to improve our sustainability as a county, but to improve our accessibility as a governmental entity as well. like in making sure, as we've been talking about, that we're a real value, to the 28 cities and towns in Norfolk County. So, like as part of this, and as part of the right sizing we've done this year in our budget process, in our operations, like obviously with the world we live in, we're really, keeping a close eye on our revenues, like everyone is, and like you as as a select board are doing as well. I'm really pleased, at this point, only about, really 2 months into the fiscal year to report that our FY21 revenues are up as of right now. About 40% of our total county revenues, they come, as Mr. Reardon mentioned, from the Registry of Deeds. And for the month of July alone, those revenues were $177,000 over projection. And we should get the numbers from August in the next few days. But from what we're hearing, the August numbers are very, will be very good as well. So that is certainly helpful. And I think all of us have paid attention to, the refinance market. The fact that home values, they really continue to rise. And thankfully, the housing inventory, in the county, remains really vibrant. And all of that has helped, with those revenues as well. As Chair Reardon mentioned, we've also moved forward with the operational analysis and the audit. We put the operational analysis out to bid the last week in July. We now, as of last week, have 3 proposals that we will now be starting to review. So we can actually likely by the end of the month vote on a consultant for that. And in addition, really to the financial pieces that that Chair Reardon mentioned, one of the things we really want to do is do a top to bottom assessment and review of the regional services that we offer. We mentioned earlier that a few years ago we worked with the town on the traffic count project for the town of Milton. Those are really things we want to do more of. And as part of this operational analysis, whoever we do hire, as a consultant, we'll be asking them to reach out. We'll be asking them and requiring them to reach out to Mr. Dennehy and to members of the select board as well for their feedback, which we think will be really helpful. Obviously, in terms of our COVID-19 response, that remains one of our daily priorities. Early on in April, the county commissioners, and working in partnership with the state, they chose early on, to allow the state and the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, to administer the CARES Act funding, to Norfolk, our county, cities, and towns like Milton. Really the idea of, and the idea was, in working with the state government, the Commonwealth was really in tune and had the ability to leverage different parts of revenue, streams and programs to be able to maximize, not only the reimbursement to Norfolk County communities, but, to also continue, to prioritize other things that matter to our local community as well, like local aid, and like other, targeted and Chapter 70 assistance, so, everything that you look at on the cherry sheets remain, remain in a stable way. So, like the town, we're going through a process to seek reimbursements as well. Additionally, we've also worked with the agricultural high school on their reimbursement process as well. The Yagi Board of Trustees, they met actually earlier this evening, and they've been working with the unions and getting, all school districts working, to make sure, the educational environments are safe and welcoming to bring, teachers and students back to school. In terms of the investments at President's Golf Course, we really have been working to increase, not only increase the curb appeal, but to really increase our commitment to investing in the infrastructure of the course. And we just a few weeks ago, I was before the sign review committee, a new sign proposals for the signage on Granite Avenue, which we're going to replace along with new signage on West Quantum Street on the Quincy side as well. We also, our chairman mentioned the investments we've done in the tennis courts there. Last year, we were able to redo 6 of those courts, and hopefully by the end of this fall, or by the early spring at the latest, we're going to finish that job. So all the tennis courts will be new there; they'll be refurbished. And we're also, looking at other ideas, in terms of understanding, and working to reflect the need, and the demand out there for, for other sports out there like pickleball, and things along those lines that we might be able to double up, with, the tennis courts as well. And then really, really major, that's a really, important priority is improving the accessibility of sports as well. We have a number of areas, number one, beginning in the parking lot going up to the clubhouse. If anyone is familiar with the stairs there, that we want to focus on and address. And then on the back 9, which is really on the Milton side, on holes 14 and 15, there are 2, sets of stairways there that are in really, really need of repair. So we're putting, in the next few weeks, we're going to be putting those up to bid as well. So we can invest, every year we invest in the greens, we invest in the sand traps and the drainage. And this year we really want to focus on the core infrastructure at the course as well, which, I know the pride that the town of Milton takes in the course. I know the pride that the city of Quincy really takes in the course, and we want to continually reflect that as a county as well. Chair Reardon also had mentioned the RSVP program, and one of the examples of really the county working to continue modernizing is obviously with a lot of school programming now turning virtual. Our RSVP program, which actually relies on senior volunteers. They're working with their senior volunteers, educating them on Zoom, on platforms like Google Classroom and other things, to be able to continue help reaching the kids and the students who we have long, sought to help and partner with. And again, it's just another way that the county and everyone else are looking to, just to continue to modernizing and adapting with the environment that we're in. And then our veteran services, we have a great veteran service advocate who partners with local VSOs. Right now, presently the veteran service officer out in the town of Canton has just left his role. And our veteran service advocate, he's licensed and accredited by the state. In addition to his regular duties in the towns of Avon and Franklin, he's also serving as the interim VSO in Canton as well. And it really gets back, to the role that we want to serve and continue to have, with Milton and all of our communities, as a real partner. And in addition, to the work we're doing on our finances, that's really where we want to be, and that's really the role we want to play. We're going forward and working with Mr. Dennehy and members of the select board as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chair Reardon. But I just wanted to thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the board for your support of Mr. Reardon, and for your continued support of the county as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mullen. Mr.
Oh, you need to unmute.
Geez, it's like I've never done this before. I apologize. The last slide is actually a summary. And the summary can be encapsulated in this way. Norfolk County government is there to serve the residents of the county and to provide opportunities for municipalities to take advantage of lots of different avenues to improve services. Over the past few years, what I've noticed as your representative to the County Advisory Board has been a subtle but growing change in the culture of the operations of Norfolk County, particularly this year when we faced the budget in the straits that it was. We recognized that changes needed to be made. And through the commissioners and the county director and the advisory board, we were able to make a start on the changes we feel will be needed to make Norfolk County even a better and stronger and healthier county providing services to the residents. With that, I would like to invite any questions, certainly of myself, or I can speak for Commissioner Collins, and Director Mullen is being open to questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Reardon. Ms. Conlon?
I don't really have a question, but I wanted to tell Joe Reardon that I really like your background. 173 Adams Street, the birthplace of President Bush 41, because of course, very appropriate, Joe.
Well,
Norfolk County is the county of presidents.
All 4 presidents. If you look at the slides.
Birthplace of John Adams, John Quincy Adams, John F. Kennedy, and George Herbert Walker Bush here in Milton.
That's right.
1924, and we had a nice, memorable day with him here in 1997, August of 1997, when he came to town for a visit. So very appropriate background. As soon as I saw it, I had to comment on that, Joe. But thank you all for your very comprehensive report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, I would just like to thank all 3 individuals here tonight. The town of Milton is well served with Mr. Reardon on the advisory board, Mr. Mullen as the director of operations, and our own Milton resident as well. Peter Collins is the commissioner. The work that they're putting in is yeoman's work. Honestly, it hits home for me. I'm a frequent player of the President's Golf Course, and the pro up there, Dana Smith, and his team have done an unbelievable job through COVID-19. When they reopened the golf course back in May, I believe there were 2 employees, and they were there pretty much all day, every day. And it's worth mentioning that Dana Smith received a note from Mr. Reardon last week recognizing the work that they have done up there. So not only are they putting a plan together and executing it, but they're in touch with the community and staying in touch with the people that are getting the work done for the taxpayers. So I want to thank all 3 individuals. It's my pleasure to work with them. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Mr. Zola?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask a question that I'm sure that you've all considered and you probably have thought about, but I'll ask it anyway. In connection with the strategic review that the commissioners are doing, is it possible that there will be more opportunities for synergies with town government and or more regional efforts in order to try to save some money on the town side?
I defer to Mr. Mullen on that, but that's something that has been the focus for the advisory board, or certainly the finance committee, recognizing that those synergies could come together to create savings for everybody. It's one of the items on our agenda in tackling this, but I'd like to hear Mr. Mullen describe it a little more eloquently than I.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for the question. Yeah, as I mentioned, the operational analysis, there were really like 3 major focuses of that. Like one is really, coming up with financial forecasting, and a real and a long-term capital improvement plan as well. The second, arm or leg of that is a strategic plan for the county, and the third like is really a real like thoughtful regional services assessment. And as part of that, what we're going to be requiring the consultant that we hire at the end of the month to do, is to come out and to talk with Mr. Dennehy, and to talk with members of every city and town's select board, a town council, a city council, to get some real honest feedback, about the type of services, that they frankly think are lacking from the county, the services that they think, we could better provide, really have a frank and open and honest conversation. So we do a real assessment, we get real feedback, and then that feedback is really able to inform our regional work, with our cities and towns going forward. We want this to be a very authentic process. In our opinion, that's going to be the only way we move into the future, in a more realistic and valuable way to everyone. So yes, absolutely, Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
No problem.
If I can jump in for 1 second, it was interesting. So the commissioners took this position with Mr. Mullen's assistance, and we brought it before the Finance Committee, chaired by Mr. Reardon. And we presented our proposal that we really wanted an outside view of the county, how we can be more streamlined and how we can better serve our cities and towns. And when we went to the Finance Committee to do the vote, we wanted to make sure that they knew that once we have this evaluation, there was no pulling back. We want to go forward with this, and we want to better serve all our cities and towns. And we're very much open to any suggestions that come of that evaluation.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Madam Chair, again, I join in thanking all of the participants and would like to encourage the possibility of once their analytical work is completed and their recommendations are identified and prioritized, having an opportunity to come back and share that information with us and see how we might conjointly work through some of that to the benefit of both entities. Just one thing to look at it across towns, countywide, but county to individual town would be of great interest to me, at least, as well as individual town to the county. I'm sure would be of interest to you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Mr. Wells, I want to give you a chance to unmute and ask a question or make a comment if you like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say, I'm very familiar with the Aggie, as Mr. Reardon spoke of. Norfolk County Agricultural High School is truly a gem, and I've been there numerous times over the years. And Joe's correct in his description of, his desire that more people take use of it, because it really is. It's something, unless you've seen it, you probably couldn't grasp what a unique thing it is for our county. And just the final two things. One, I think that I'm very familiar with the collaborative, particularly as my time as chief. The compact purchasing on the bids is each of them will know that Plymouth County is very aggressive. The county commissioners in the use of regional bidding for their county in the state. So I think that's something that particularly DPW directors, police chiefs, fire chiefs, consolidated facilities, they may appreciate that. That may come in to help. It definitely, for new chiefs, it's definitely a tool that's very effective, because most chiefs come from an operational side, both in police and fire, and suddenly you are thrust into that administrative role of purchasing, and these collective purchasing packs are very, very effective in the Commonwealth. And then the last thing for the three of that wasn't touched on tonight, Joe, you may be aware of it. A few residents have emailed us over the past 6 months. This is relative to presidents. There's a proposed large development that wants to go in on the back side, the Quincy side. Are you familiar with this, Joe? The Quincy side of President's Golf Course. Am I correct in this?
Yeah, my knowledge is that it would border like Thistle Avenue in that way if it went through on that corner there. I don't know the status of it. I think Director Mullen may have more information than I do.
Are you worried at all that it would negatively impact presidents?
To be honest with you, we have heard about the proposal. I believe in January there was like a ward meeting like held in Quincy by Councilor Kane about the project. But to like we have not actually seen any formal plans like for the project as of yet that have been submitted to the Quincy Planning Board as of yet. So it's been really difficult to assess like what, if any, impact the development would have. But we definitely are aware of it. Like we're definitely keeping a very close eye on it. And we're going to want to really learn more about it and see the plans as it moves forward.
Because just to follow up, one of the things, while I'm not a golfer, I've walked about every inch of that golf course at some point in my life. Your view to the Boston Harbor, and the sunscape and the landscape of the city of Boston, and particularly in the Ponce River Basin and Boston Harbor, is pretty spectacular. And I wouldn't want to see something that come in that could negatively impact that for your members and your users. So that's, I just want to make sure you're aware of it. Our emails were very preliminary as well, but the area that was described to me in the most recent one, which was a Thistle Ave resident, Joe, who wrote it to me, kind of put it in that area, that WEZE area where it might impact you. So that's all. I just want to make sure you're aware of it. So I'll thank you all, very comprehensive, and thanks for looking out for the residents of Milton once again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Mr. Doyle?
I'd just like to add on the Thistle Ave area, if I have the property identified correctly, there was an introductory orientation on such a possibility before the Conservation Commission about a year ago. And if there's any further information forthcoming to the Concom, I'll be happy to share that.
Thank you. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate, as Ms. Conlon said, such a thorough report, and I'm sure that our residents will also find it educational and beneficial. I have to say that my ears perked up when I heard about the purchasing group, and any invitation that you issued to the board for a lunch for the RSVP program or something else, I'm sure we'd all be delighted to receive it and to attend. I've met several horseback riding young women who attended the Aggie, and not only did they have an education that you can't get at, yes, Milton High, which is a wonderful school, but they also had all the traditional subjects, and I enjoyed talking with them about literature and history, and so it's really a unique kind of education. And I'm sure we all look very forward to participating in any way we can in that operational assessment. And I really thank you all for your excellent work and for doing that. There are new opportunities for us to work together as life changes for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Mr. Mullen, don't you have a Rockland Select Board meeting to go to?
No, I don't. Thank you, Mr. Dennehy. Not this evening. This is my only one. Thank you for your time, as always, Mike.
Right. Members of the board, Mr. Mullen is also a fellow Select Board member in the town of Rockland. He wears many
Don't
hats.
hold that against me, though.
Thank you for everything, Michael.
Busy man.
Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks very much, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Number 7, we are moving on to the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, and I have to apologize. I think maybe it was labeled properly assessed. Yes, Clean Energy Program on the agenda, but it's property. So I just wanted to make note of that. And so the Property Assessed Clean Energy, or PACE program for Massachusetts was actually brought to us by someone in Milton, and the PACE program was created through the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources and Mass Development to provide financing for certain kinds of commercial and industrial properties, multifamily properties with 5 or more units, and buildings owned by nonprofits. And so we actually have our planning director here to share a little bit more about this, as the board would need to opt in order for our property owners to make use of this program. Thank you very much, Mr. Swinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Dennehy. Chair Collins kind of gave you the basics. This is a program. It's relatively new in the Commonwealth, although the concept of it is pretty common in other states. The way that it works is a betterment and a lien is placed on a property, and that's how a property will do the financing for solar panels, insulation, new chillers, new boilers. There's a sort of set of criteria about the different types of clean energy improvements that properties can make. This has been brought to our attention by some residents and some activists in town. I've been meeting and calling with folks at Mass Development, along with the Chief Assessor, Bob Bushway. A lot of as far as the responsibilities go, they would rest with his office. But Mass Development has assured us that they have all of the resources to help us make any changes to our assessment system that would make it as seamless a process as possible. The universe of properties that are eligible in this, as Chair Collins said, multifamily, residential, institutional, industrial, commercial. It's not like every house in Milton is going to be trying to do this. So we're hoping it's a manageable set of properties. But from the looks of the program, it really sounds like it could be a really good benefit to some of our commercial, industrial, institutional, and multifamily property owners. So we've been looking at it with town council, with the town treasurer, with the tax assessor, and we all think that it's a pretty good program. So that's what we got right now. And we do hope that all of the properties will be properly assessed. So although that was a misprint, it's not inaccurate on your agenda. That was a joke, everybody.
Yes, that's you're trying to see if we're awake. Do any members have questions or comments? No? Mr. Wells, I just want to check because I can't see you to see if you have a question or comment.
I'm all set, Madam Chair. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, well, would somebody like to offer a motion? Mr. Zulus?
It sounds, Madam Chair, like the motion would be to opt in to the PACE program. Is that?
Yes, but it may be that you all did not receive. There's actually a motion that we have to read.
Oh.
Perhaps I should do that. It's very long.
Okay.
Why don't I do that?
Single-spaced, so I was hoping.
Madam Chair, can we waive that read? That's an awful long motion. Can we waive that?
Can I get a sense from the board? Would you like to waive the reading? I don't mind reading it, but if people would like to waive it.
Town council is on the line. Maybe.
Yes. Mr. Freitag?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Kevin Freitag, Town Council. I think it's the typical process for this board to read it unless maybe all of the select board members have already read it and have it in front of them and they can send off. But if there's any question about what's there, it's better practice to actually read it out loud.
Right. And that way it's read into the record and residents can hear it. Ms. Conlon?
I think there's a typo in the second to last paragraph at the very end. It refers to this legislative body, I think that's just a mistake.
Yes, I noted
It
that.
ends with the word authorization.
Right. Wait a minute. Okay, so which line is that in?
At the very end of this, the second paragraph from the bottom.
Oh, second from the bottom. Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so vote authorizing the town of Milton to participate in the Massachusetts Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, PACE, Massachusetts. Whereas pursuant to MGL Chapter 23M as amended the PACE Act, the Commonwealth has established a commercial sustainable energy program known as the Massachusetts Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, PACE, Massachusetts, to provide a financing mechanism, PACE financing, to private owners of commercial and industrial properties for certain qualifying commercial energy improvements. And whereas pursuant to the PACE Act, PACE Massachusetts is administered by the Massachusetts Development Finance Agency, known as Mass Development, in consultation with the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, and whereas under PACE Massachusetts, the owner of the commercial or industrial property benefiting from the improvements, the benefited property, is required to repay the PACE financing through the payment of a betterment assessment, which is known as a PACE betterment assessment, placed on such benefited property by the municipality in which the benefited property is located. And whereas in order for an owner of commercial or industrial property to participate in PACE Massachusetts, Section 2 of the PACE Act requires that the municipality in which such property is located must elect to participate in PACE Massachusetts. And whereas the town of Milton, the municipality, has determined that it is in the best interest of the municipality to participate in PACE Massachusetts as a participating municipality, as provided in the PACE Act, to permit the owners of commercial and industrial properties located in the municipality to access PACE financing for qualifying commercial energy improvements through PACE Massachusetts. Whereas now, therefore, be it voted as follows. The Select Board of the Town of Milton hereby approves the municipality participating in PACE Massachusetts pursuant to the PACE Act and authorizes the town administrator to enter into a PACE Massachusetts Municipal Assessment and Assignment Agreement, known as the agreement, with Mass Development, pursuant to which the municipality will agree to 1. Levy PACE betterment assessments and impose PACE betterment assessment liens on benefited properties located in the municipality in the amounts determined by Mass Development to be sufficient to repay the PACE financing. 2. Assign the PACE betterment assessment liens to Mass Development, which Mass Development may in turn assign to the providers of the PACE financing, known as each a capital provider, as collateral for such PACE financing. 3. Include on the property tax bills for the benefited properties the installment payments necessary to repay the PACE betterment assessment in the amounts and at the times as determined by Mass Development for collect and pay over to Mass Development or its designee PACE betterment assessment installment payments and when collected. And 5. Enforce to the extent required by the agreement, the PACE betterment assessments and liens, the agreement to be substantially in the form presented to this meeting with such changes, modifications, and insertions as the town administrator may approve as being in the best interest of the municipality, the collector treasurer of the town, or such other town agency as may be designated in the agreement as authorized to levy such PACE betterment assessments and impose the PACE betterment assessments liens on behalf of the municipality without further authorization. Notwithstanding any other provision of law to the contrary, officers and officials of the municipality, including without limitation municipal tax assessors and tax collectors, are not personally liable to Mass Development or to any other person for claims of whatever kind or nature under or related to PACE Massachusetts, including without limitation claims for or related to uncollected PACE betterment assessments. Other than fulfillment of the obligations specified in the agreement, the municipality has no liability to the owner of the benefited property or to any capital provider related to the municipality's participation in Pace, Massachusetts.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Zulus.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for your patience with that reading. Next, we have discussion approval of the Railway Village Historic District signs. The Railway Village Historic District is in East Milton. And I believe I see that Mr. Mahalchik has joined us.
I need to start my video. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Good
Mr.
evening,
Mahalchik.
Mike. Thanks for joining us.
I'm looking for the select board to approve the hanging of 3 municipal signs in East Milton to delineate the Railway Village Historic District. And a little background on this. This district was first brought to my attention by the late, great Eddie Duffy when he dropped off a 30-page description of what this district was back when I first moved to East Milton. It turns out that the National Registry of Historic Places has listed this 30-acre district since January of 2000. It's got 177 significant buildings dating from 1748 to 1949. And I guess you can't say, they are always making more history, but you can't replace old history. And so the town of Milton is lucky to have a great treasure like this, an area that played a role in the development of the country. And this got discussed quite some time ago. A fellow by the name of Arthur Doyle went somewhere to get some designs made for some signs, and we brought it up before the East Milton Neighborhood Association. And in their meeting of June 2019, they voted unanimously to approve going forward with trying to petition the town to get these signs put in. It has been like an education in town government to find out how to make this happen. And I really appreciate the input I got, especially from the Sign Review Committee. But I've talked to the Historic Commission, I've talked to the Sign Review Committee, and the latest and greatest design of these signs is, I think I sent it on, if you want to take a look at what they're going to look like. There should have been a word attachment. There it is. So we're going to have this oval sign and 2 rectangular signs that say the exact same thing with a white background, black letters, placed in 3 locations. And there's a map of the district to show where they're going to go. Number 1, on Adams Street as you enter the district from the west. Number 2, the oval sign will go on Crane Field. And number 3 is going to be as you enter the district coming from the east, from Quincy. I could talk about this at length, but I guess I could say that, this is a thing that has been brought up before the neighborhood. People feel like it's a good thing for the homeowners, it's a good thing for the neighborhood, and it's a good thing for the town to recognize a historic district, one has been around for 20 years. Because there isn't really a great awareness that this exists at this point. But once those signs go up, there will be. One more thing, the cost of the signs is $1,000. It'd be totally paid for by private funds. The Milton Rotary Club is kicking in some money, East Milton Neighborhood Association, and a fellow by the name of Richard Wells has pledged a lot to help put these signs, to buy these signs. And then we're looking for help hanging them from the town.
Certainly. I've talked to DPW Director Chase Berkeley, Mr. Mahalchuk, pending the approval by this board. Public Works will certainly help as they did with Scott's Woods years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions or any comments? No.
Just thank
Like what beautiful signs those are. Come on, people.
Thank you to Mike, to all of the members of the Neighborhood Association and the Rotary Club and all of the private donors for all of your efforts to as Mike said, to work through the process and get to this point. So thank you for doing this. This is a good thing for the town.
Yes, Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Duffy smiling in heaven.
Amen. On that, on those notes, I will move to approve the Railway Village District Historic Sign proposal as presented by the East Milton Neighborhood Association, Milton Rotary Club, and private donors.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
I think I better recuse myself, Madam Chair, where I'm one of the donors.
I understand. You'll abstain or recuse yourself. Okay. Mr. Zulus?
Yes, and thank you to Mr. Doyle for his efforts and Mr. Wells for his contributions to this.
Yes, and myself, I am a yes also, and my thanks to everyone, and that it really is a service to the town when people get together and make visible our history in this way. And I hope that there'll be some kind of socially distanced unveiling, and that it will cause people to look more deeply into our history, which is so rich. Mr. Doyle.
May I just add, please, a thanks to Mike for picking up an important ball and running with it. It's nice to have this accomplishment.
I was walking with it, actually, Arthur.
Also to say that the Conservation Commission has unanimously adopted the oval sign for the marking of conservation lands under its jurisdiction in the town of Milton. So we will probably see another iteration of this in the not too distant future.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, they are beautiful signs.
Okay, so I'll go to the store and get the signs made, and then I guess I should just get in touch with Chase Berkeley.
With Mike.
Mike, okay.
Yes.
You'll be hearing from me.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care and have a good evening.
All right.
Nice job, Michael.
My pleasure.
Our next is the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee has brought forward an owner's project manager that they would like the board to consider. So this is a discussion approval. And Mr. Zerwinski, we're ready to hear from you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board should have received a letter from the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee dated September 8th, 2020. I won't reread all of that. Suffice to say that a request for qualifications for owner's project manager services for the design and construction of the new Milton Animal Shelter was released on May 13th, 2020. There were 6 responses to that RFQ. There was a rigorous and thorough selection process that was outlined in that document and conducted, and the selection on the part of the advisory committee, it was a unanimous selection, was R&D consultants. And so one of the process that's stipulated in that request for qualifications is once the advisory committee has made its selection, it comes to the select board for its approval, at which point the committee or the town's designee can conduct fee negotiations with the selected firm. And so what the committee has asked for in this letter is an approval vote from the select board, and also the designation of Mike Kelly, the town's chief procurement officer, to conduct those fee negotiations. So that's that.
And the other is for us to authorize the town administrator to execute the contract as well.
Yeah, so on that, Madam Chair, I had a discussion with town council earlier today. The advisory committee had voted that recommendation yesterday at its meeting. What I think that I would recommend, based on town council's advice, is that Mr. Kelly, if he's approved as a designee, conduct those fee negotiations. We have contract language from town council's office that we're prepared to fill in once those negotiations are complete. We'd like to bring it back to this board so this board can take a look and read through. At which point we'd recommend that you authorize Mr. Dennehy to sign, so that we don't have to cart a contract around all over town for all of you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the update. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
So I think so I understood. So we're gonna authorize Mr. Kelly to conduct the negotiations, and then they're gonna draft the contract. Then it's gonna come back to us, and then we'll authorize the town administrator. Is that the process?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve R&D Consultants as the selected owner's project manager for the animal shelter, and to authorize the Chief Procurement Officer, Michael Kelly, to engage in fee negotiation with R&D Consultants for their services.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Madam Chairman, I'll be recused on this vote as well,
Thank you.
as I think this is going to cross into a financial,
Yes.
maybe not yet, but eventually, so I just assume recuse myself now.
Thank you. And Mr.
Okay.
Zulus?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Zawinski. Now, item number 10.
Good night, Tim. Thank you.
We actually received a letter from Town Clerk Susan Galvin stepping down from the position of Public Records Access Officer. And so this is just a preliminary discussion to talk about next steps. The clerk's office has been doing a great job, and but as challenges start to mount, and as far as COVID and elections, and it's just before there are any difficulties, it just seems prudent for us to look for another alternative. And Mr. Dennehy, would you like to?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, at the inception of this legislation, there was some concern that the clerk had expressed that it would be very time-consuming. There are some communities, and we have Jennifer McCullough in our office researching who the appointees are. There are times when this could be a part-time job. There are times when we get somewhat inundated with public records requests. It's very time-consuming. The IT department is involved. Sometimes the police department is involved. It's a time-consuming and very manual and laborious task for each of these public records. The town understands that this was legislation that went into effect in January of 2018, and we will honor that. The legislation does talk about the clerk's designee or the chief executive body's designee. So tonight's discussion is to find a replacement for the clerk. She has not absolved herself of the work. She continues to work through any and all open requests that come into town or have come into town. And there is some time sensitivity with these by law. So it's something that needs someone with not as busy a schedule as the clerk, as we have learned in the first 2 years.
Right. And she's also train the next access officer as well. So that's a very good thing.
Yeah. So I just want to thank the clerk for her unwavering work around this. As you can understand, some of these public records requests involve town council and multiple department heads. It's not as simple as people think it is, but it is the law, and the town will follow through on each and every one. I'd like to thank the clerk for her 2+ years of service in a very, very busy time.
Yes, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Zulus?
Mr. Dennehy, you mentioned being inundated with the public records request. Fair to say that we've been inundated with the public records request for the past year and a half?
That's correct, yeah. At the beginning of the legislation, not so much, and some of them are very quickly turned around, where someone will ask for a voter list or a motor vehicle accident, which is a police record. Some of them are more encapsulating and take a lot longer. But yeah, I would say since probably the summer of the fall of 18, summer of 19, things have picked up.
Thank you. Ms. Conlon?
Yeah, I want to echo the thanks to Susan Galvin, because she's done yeoman's work, she and her staff. I think it's been a burden on not only Susan, but members of her department. I think we may need to think about hiring a part-time position for this, and obviously there's a financial consideration there, and a personnel board approval that would be involved. But some weeks this could be a full-time job, just responding to public records requests. It's been a burden not only on us, but on many communities. And I'm sure we've all talked to colleagues in other cities and towns. I hear about this a lot at the MMA meetings. Every community is just inundated with these public records requests, and it is the law, but there's often talk about needing to reform it because some of the time constraints and some of the costs that it imposes on communities are not easy and are burdensome. So I think we need to, first of all, thank Susan for all of her work, and glad that she's continuing to do this for us for a while, but then think about who the right person might be for this role, and acknowledge that it might be a matter of bringing in somebody to deal with these. The number of them and the complexity of some of them requires multiple levels of review. And so I don't think we have an answer right now, but I think we're going to need to think about what some of the alternatives are, including possibly hiring someone for this role.
Mr. Doyle?
I'd like to request, Madam Chair, that we have an opportunity to give Mr. Dennehy time to submit a professional vita or a job description for this position.
I see.
Or this functionality to see whether it fits with an existing person, or we do need to make an additional hire. I think having a clear understanding based upon the breadth and depth of what's being discussed here, to have this outlined on paper would at least help me, if possibly others as well.
I see him nodding, so that will be forthcoming then. Thank you for asking for that. Mr. Wells?
I agree with Katie, Madam Chair, in after that. I think that perhaps we're at the point where we should look at a person who's tasked just with this, and particularly someone who then in that role alone can, as time moves on, garner a good understanding and grasp of the legal aspects that are attached to this. A lot of stuff, as Michael Dennehy knows, is going over to town council all the time. I think that getting the right person in there, as Katie mentioned, that can deal with this would probably be a prudent move. Because I agree with Kate, it may be altered or adjusted, but I don't see it going away. And you're right. I listen to what Boston's being hit with on a weekly, and it's amazing. Just from like the media outlets that are hitting them with FOIA requests, it's unbelievable. So I think it's probably a good step to start. So I agree with Arthur. Let's have Mr. Dennehy start the process of coming back to us with some guidance on how we're going to go on this.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Zulus.
Just hearkening back to what the presentation from the Norfolk County Commissioners, maybe there's an opportunity for a regional or a multi-town solution here. If you have, there may not be enough for one person full-time, but there may be part-time, or, you could split it perhaps among several towns. So that may be an option.
Yeah, that was something that I had thought of as well. After speaking with Susan, I just called to acknowledge that we received her resignation. And as Katie said, there are weeks where it's at least a 40-hour a week job, but then it can be variable as well. So I think looking at after Mr. Dennehy is able to give us an overview of the skills needed and perhaps look at the time, then we'll have a better idea. And I like the regionalization approach. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Thank you all very much. And thank you again to Susan Galvin and your staff. Next discussion is of town meeting articles. I do want to note that letter D, the adoption of the town website as official posting location for meeting notices, that actually rests with the board, that we would adopt that and then give notice to the Attorney General's office that would be our mode of posting for meetings. And there are some things that we would need to consider. So my thought is that we should put this on the next agenda so that people have that information of what's required. And we can really talk about it in a more fulsome way for residents who are attending the meeting. So at the moment, we're just talking about a general budget article, but we don't have the details ironed out yet. I don't know if Mr. Dennehy would like to give us a little update on numbers. I think we may have some news.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Still status quo. I was on a call yesterday with Lieutenant Governor and some staffers. Unfortunately, I had to drop off. It was more, the first part of that call was more about reopening schools and some safety measures that DESI and the DPH would like in effect. I'm not sure if any other members of the board, I know Vice Chair Conlon joins that call every once in a while, but we haven't received any email guidance from the state with respect to FY21 budget. So we're still in that holding pattern. We did have Chief Appraiser Bob Bushway, Department of Revenue, recently recertified new growth. So there's some additional new growth that will be coming. Had a quick conversation with Town Council, how we addressed that, understanding that there was a number that was budgeted back in June at annual town meeting, and that number has been increased. That's a good story. It comes from one of our utility providers who's forecast for FY21 increase, so we share and reap the benefits of some of that with new growth. So understandably, as Director Adamczyk said tonight, and the Norfolk County team had talked about, we do realize that there's going to be a bit of a gut check coming up soon, but we just don't have specific guidance on that. So I know the warrant closes next week, and we're working on some draft articles and getting them to Town Council for review by this board, but nothing specifically yet.
Okay, thank you. And the Fire Station Building Committee is working on drafting their article as well. So we should have that ready for the warrant committee as well. And then the other article was to put the treasurer on the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. And we don't have language for that article, but would anybody like to speak to any of these articles or ask a question? Mr. Zulus?
On the fire station building committee, do we know what the request is going to be in general terms or specific terms?
No, they're working on updating the numbers, and that part goes into the recommendation. So I did contact Dan Clark and Brian Walsh, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. So hopefully they'll have something before the warrant closes.
In terms of a number?
Well, first the article, and it would be good for them to have the article at least in time for the warrant committee meeting on the 21st, which we will also be posted for.
And then on the FY21 budget, you know, I know we budgeted very conservatively, but no sense yet, Mike, on whether we're in the ballpark.
No, obviously there's some extenuating circumstances going on with the school system, and hybrid versus remote, and all that is. But no, we have talked to the department heads. They're on alert. Some of them will realize some savings similar to fourth quarter of FY20, where the courthouse is closed or some of the trainings aren't being held, but nothing material yet. I did hear of a school district in New Hampshire that started off hybrid yesterday and went to remote today. So I'm sure they're saving on some transportation costs. So things like that will be addressed as we reopen schools and see what the next couple of months bring us. And just to go back to COVID, the latest update that came in at 6 p.m. tonight, Milton is still a green community, which is good. I believe it was 10 cases reported in the last 14 days and 355 cases overall since COVID hit our community and the country in March. So, but yeah, no real no specifics yet.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Ms. Conlon, did you want to?
Yes, I think on the budget article, we probably need to schedule a finance committee meeting in the next week or so. There was some outreach to the schools. I traded some messages back and forth with Elaine Craighead of the school finance subcommittee, and Michael Dennehy spoke with Glenn Pavlicek. So there's been some initial conversation, but I think we need to get a meeting together for that.
Yes. I already made a note too, so.
Is the article about the treasurer and the capital improvement planning committee, is that one that we would submit? Or is there I'm assuming that's one that our board would submit if we were to decide to do that. It's probably within our
purview.
Within our purview.
That was my assumption. Who brought that forward?
So that came out of a discussion, Madam Chair, with the Capital Improvement Committee. Basically, it would be a non-voting member, right? So the treasurer would not be a voting member of that committee, but sit in so that we don't have to report back, or that committee doesn't have to report back to the treasurer after meetings, but rather that they're all rowing in the same direction, and his or her attendance would take place at those morning meetings.
Thank you. Appreciate
that. Why does the capital committee want it to be a non-voting position? The accountant is on as a voting member, right?
The accountant is on as a voting member. I believe the understanding was because the bonding takes place, the treasurer is the person that signs a lot of the bonding, that they might not want to be a voting member, but.
Okay.
I think, Katie, that comes from Amy. I think that the whole concept comes from Amy and Jim. I don't think it was the other members of the body.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Okay. If there's no further discussion, okay, we'll move on. So approval of the September 2nd, 2020 meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read through them and offer changes if they like?
I'll move that we approve the September 2nd, 2020 meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
And Mr. Wells, you'll be abstained.
That's correct.
Right. And Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. Okay, thank you. And so the warrant closes on 9/26. We're looking at future meeting dates, and our next meeting is 9/23. And we haven't scheduled the meetings in the next month yet, but I think we could probably do that at the next meeting. We're looking at our retreat, and we're trying to schedule a meeting for the airplane flight paths, but I haven't received a date yet from Mr. Doherty, so we're still waiting on that.
Madam Chair, so should we, I'm not looking to add additional meetings, but if the warrant is closing on the 16th, we have not submitted articles for the two that we've just talked about. So I think the board is going to need to have it could be a morning meeting, it could be a very short meeting, but I think we're going to have to do something to that day or that night or the next day to get, preferably that day, to get the articles in final form and submitted to the warrant committee rather than waiting a week. I think they need to go to the warrant committee pretty quickly so that they can start having their deliberations.
Right, because they're meeting before our next meeting. So are people available for a morning meeting just for that item, or
even a short end of the day at 5 o'clock? I guess the warrant technically closes at 5 o'clock on the 16th. Maybe even late afternoon in case there's something that comes in at 4:45 in the afternoon.
Okay. What if we did so you're suggesting a 5 o'clock meeting?
Well, whatever's convenient for everyone. But I mean, it could be 7 as long as, I think it could be a short meeting. Whatever's convenient for everyone. We just need to allow for the possibility that a citizens group could potentially submit an article, or another town board could submit something.
Right. So it seems then maybe an evening meeting is better because people will need until 5 o'clock if they wanted to submit something. So we could make it 6:30 or 7 if that works for people.
On the 15th, Madam Chair?
The 16th.
16th.
Yes.
That'd be fine.
Any of those times are fine for me.
Okay.
7 is actually better if that.
7? Okay. Richard, does that work for you? 7?
I guess so. Yeah. I guess so.
It'll be short. Great.
Quick question, Madam Chair, only because I wasn't here. I take it this agency, we're going into a December special town meeting, not January?
Yes, because of the budget.
Is it the same vote as last year?
Yes.
Is it the same reasoning as last year?
Exactly, because the rate will have to be set, and so all of that has to be done basically the next day. They'll have to set all the work up, but then just submit everything the next day, and we can't do it any later, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the reminder, Katie. Now we have the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. Just like to go back to the clerk's office and all the work that was done. Make sure that we had a very successful election on September 1st, and actually there was a lot of voting going on prior to that. About 50% of the town took place. 50% of the registered voters voted either through early voting, vote by mail, absentee, or on the day on September 1st. So I want to thank the clerk's office they're in a quote unquote lull, if you want, getting ready for early voting, which is going to start on Saturday, October 17th at Town Hall. That's going to run through Friday, October 30th. They're still processing vote by mail applications. It's just a very busy place, and will be up to and including the November 3rd presidential election. So I just want to acknowledge the clerk, Brooke Alvin, all of her staff, volunteers that work the polls and work during early voting, and some of the seasonal employees that came in to process the vote by mail stuff, and the town departments that helped make it a successful day. I appreciate all of their work, and we're not done yet. Secondly, the Milton has been a green community since 2010. Bill Clark, Bill Ritchie, and both their teams in the past have secured almost $1 million for the town through a very competitive green community grant application process. In fact, 271 of the 351 communities in Massachusetts are enrolled in this, so you can understand how competitive these grants are. The town was just awarded a little over $81,000, and they are going to upgrade the library's lighting to more efficient LED lighting. So I just want to acknowledge all the work by both the planning department and Consolidated Facilities, and understand that the $1 million that they've been awarded, it isn't everything, because of all the savings that's been incurred from the greener and more efficient money that's been spent. So I just want to thank both those groups and individuals for leading Milton continually through this very competitive application process. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Chair's report. I actually attended recently a storm surge working group meeting, and it's been a little while since we've heard from Bill Golden, but he's still working away on the layered defense system for the 15 cities and towns around Boston. And I won't go into things at great length, but I will tell you there will be municipal workshops in November for elected officials, and in October they're doing DPW workshops and are really hoping that that people from DPW engineering would participate. They're coming out with a newsletter, and also Boston is now talking about layered defense systems. In addition, they've met with the governor's office to focus on program and funding sources. So there is some headway despite COVID being made. So I think Mr. Golden and all the other people working on this. On topics that the chair did not reasonably anticipate, I did want to note that we received the project eligibility letter from Mass Housing for the residences at East Milton, and even though it wasn't on the agenda, we just felt that we wanted to get it up on the website quickly, and we could revisit it at the next meeting, but we just wanted to mention it here at the moment. And now we move on to member reports. Do any members have reports? Ms. Conlon?
I just wanted to mention to the board, I was at a board meeting of the Mass Municipal Association and the Mass Select Board Association yesterday, and the annual meeting for January has been scheduled for the 21st and 22nd of January. It's not going to be in person this year, it's going to be all virtual. So the cost is going to be $85, which is a reduced cost for attendees, and the MMA is really hoping that they'll have good attendance. There's going to be a lot of good programming. The trade show is going to be virtual, a lot of breakout rooms. So there's still a lot of plans being made to make it a very good program, and they're encouraging a lot of town hall employees in the various cities and towns to attend given the reduced cost. So hopefully that's something that that Mike Dennehy might be able to consider, whether it makes sense financially to expand participation to a wider group of employees. There's usually a few who do attend some of the programs. And of course, the town administrator and members of the board usually attend, but I just wanted to pass that along. Those are the dates, and reduced cost, entirely virtual this year.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle?
Madam Chair, I'll just add that the Master Plan Implementation Committee met on Tuesday, September 1st. The order of business included an update on the town center planning, an update on the Community Preservation Act, the election of officers and committee assignments, and Cheryl DeGias has been reelected as the chair of the Master Plan Implementation Committee, so we congratulate her on that, and a discussion of some future initiatives, with the chair being particularly interested in a process whereby updates are made public and communicated on an ongoing basis, and possibly the addition of metrics. And at some future point in time, there'll be a update to the select board once the chair of the select board and the chair of the master plan implementation committee determine a date for such.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Mr. Wells, do you have a report?
No report also. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Mr. Zulus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No report.
We have public comment response. Would anyone like to respond? Thank you. Future agenda items. I've been collecting a list as people have been suggesting them, and are there any others that people would like to bring up now? Yes, Mr. Zulus?
One of which I may have mentioned to you, Madam Chair, and that is for the 23rd discussion of the Budget Advisory Committee and possibly appointments. And then also, if we could, if there's room on the 23rd, the Traffic Mitigation Committee made a recommendation for an East Milton working group. And if we could put that on for discussion of an East Milton working group for the traffic mitigation recommendations as well.
Thank you. And I don't see anyone else with other items. At this point, we're to 19, and I move that we enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Section 6, A6, excuse me, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, as I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of this public body, specifically with respect to property at 41 Wharf Street.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon? Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Myself, yes. And we're now joined by...
Madam Chair, I might have missed it, but did you also mention the next one, the Kidder Library?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we would come back out and go back in, because then we have to come out and go to trustees, the Governor Stoughton trustees. But I can do both at the same time.
Isn't that just executive session as well?
We have approval of meeting minutes, and then we go into executive session for that.
I mean, I think in the past we really tried to do, just end the meeting with the executive. Okay. But however.
Well, we can defer the minutes. Mr. Freitag?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You just need to make sure that if you're going to have an executive session for Governor Stoughton trustees, that meeting has to at least be opened in public session first.
Right. Yes. So that's why I was saying I think we have to come back to public session. Mr. Zulus?
If I may suggest, I think the second item 20 on the agenda is an executive session for Kidder, and that's a select board executive session.
Right.
So I think maybe I missed it, but was that one mentioned? Was Kidder mentioned, or was it just 41 War?
No, I didn't do that yet. I thought we would come back out and I could do it, but that's why I was saying I can also do that one at this time as well. So,
yeah.
But we will have to come.
Yeah, maybe we just do the select board ones, and then we can come out and do the.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, that's what I
guess
was
my
saying.
question was more for the TV. Do we, if you're just going to open the Governor Stoughton meeting and then go into executive session, I'm not sure that Milton Access TV wants to wait around just to then for 30 seconds open it and then go into executive session. But I mean, the alternative would just be to recess the select board meeting, open Governor Stoughton, do the minutes, go back to the recess Governor Stoughton, go back to the select board, and then just enter into executive session for all 3 items.
Okay, let's do that then.
I'd accept that as a motion, Madam Chair. That I'd ask that what Katie just said
Thank you.
be the formal motion.
Great. May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Conlon?
Yes, to recess the select board meeting.
Yes. Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Collins? Yes. Okay. So, so I recess. We've done that, and I now call to order the meeting of the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund for the approval of meeting minutes for August 26, 2020. Has everyone had a chance to read them and offer any changes? Okay, good. All those in, I didn't hear anyone approve the motion.
I'll move approval of the August 26 minutes of the Governor Stoughton trustees.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. Okay, thank you. Now I move to enter executive session. Actually, I have to recess. Sorry about this. Not used to this. I have to recess Governor Stoughton and then move back to our select board meeting. So I move to enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, as I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, specifically with respect to 41 War Street. And I also move to enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the exchange, purchase, lease, or value of real property, as I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, specifically with regard to Kidder Library. And I need to recess and move back into Governor Stoughton. Is that correct? In order to enter executive session there, or at the same time?
I think you recessed the Governor Stoughton meeting, and then you've already done that, and you've gone back into the select board meeting, right. And I think you need to announce then that you're going to be going into executive session following the adjournment of the select board meeting, going into executive session for the Governor Stoughton meeting, just so the public knows.
Right. So that's exactly what we'll do. We're going to then adjourn the select board meeting and move back into Mr. Freitag.
I'm so sorry, but I just want to make sure that the motion that you make to go into executive session for Governor Stoughton trustees, that needs to be in open session.
That's what I thought. Yes.
Then you're all set.
Right. So we'll enter back into open session after we have those two discussions, and then we'll enter into executive. But correct? But that doesn't solve the problem of taping.
If I may,
Chair, I
Madam
think you
Chair,
can do it right now.
If I can, I think Mr. Wells is right. I think that although you need to go back into, you need to recess the select board, go back into executive session, or go back to Governor Stoughton trustees, make your motion right now as Governor Stoughton trustees to enter into executive session, which will immediately follow the two executive sessions for the select board. And then also announce that you're not going to go back into open session after that meeting. And then you can have your 3 executive sessions for the 2 boards back to back.
Right. Okay. That's what I had said. Okay. But people look perplexed. Sorry about that. I was reading your faces incorrectly. So we're going to recess the select board meeting and move back into open session for the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund, at which time I will now move that we enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, specifically with respect to Town Farm.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
And myself, yes. And just so that the public knows, we will be not coming back into open session. We will, after we're finished the select board portion, we're just going to adjourn and then move on to the executive session for the Governor Stoughton trustees and adjourn from there. And I thank you everyone for your patience and your attention this evening.